Okay, guys, Adam Trigger here. It is Thursday. It's time for On the Clock, and I've ditched the clock at this point. We're just going to go rapid fire through conference tournament stuff. So I am going to keep this to strictly conference tournament games here on Thursday, like I've done so far this week. But I'm going to hit as many as possible over the next like 12, 13 minutes. And I will get the promo out of the way first. I do have a 4% play up at WagerTalk tonight. Really nice start to the week for me so far. 6-1 since Monday. 2-0 sweep last night. And I have to come on. If I'm going to come on here and complain when stuff doesn't go my way at the end of games, which has happened a lot this season, I at least have to acknowledge when I start catching the breaks, which was last night. St. Francis choked the game away, and it looked like we were headed to OT. And they were fouled, completely bailed out by the refs, fouled on essentially the last shot of the game, went to the foul line and won the game at the foul line. And then Notre Dame down by one late, corner three, pretty much for the win. So kind of, the last second stuff finally went in my favor for a 2-0 night, 6-1 on the week. And I hope to continue that tonight. I am going to give you two of my client plays on this show. So if you're still here, at least stick around for that. And it'll start sort of the discussion for conference tournament. So the first tournament that gets underway today is the Missouri Valley. They're playing their opening round today, 3 games. And the game I really have an opinion on the most is the 3:30 Eastern tip-off between Missouri State and Illinois State. And what I decided to do here was use Illinois State on the money line. And so this will effectively be parlay of the day. So we will start off with parlay of the day. And I did make this a 3% client play. And I decided to go Illinois State to Colgate. The Illinois State my reasoning for Illinois State is more, I'm just a believer in this team. Like when I look at this team in the context of the Missouri Valley, they look a lot more like the top 4. So when you look at the Missouri Valley standings right now, there is a pretty significant drop off between the top 4 and the rest of the league. Only 4 teams in the Missouri Valley had a winning conference record this year. Drake, Bradley, Northern Iowa, and Belmont. The only 4 teams in the Valley to finish conference play with a winning record. Everyone else was either 500 or sub 500, the other 12 teams. One of the 2 500 teams was Illinois State, and they get the 5 seed going 10-10 in Missouri Valley play. And again, it's really eye test for me, but like where my ratings have them, they look a lot more like the Drakes, the Bradleys, the Northern Iowas than they do, let's say, the Southern Illinois, Indiana State, Missouri State, sort of that middle part that they would be compared to. I think Illinois State's very dangerous in this conference tournament if they can make it through today. They have to make it through the early afternoon lull opening round game against the worst team in the league in Missouri State, 2-18 in conference play. But when you're in a league like this, where Illinois State, you're only going dancing if you win this tournament, I think they're going to come out motivated. I think they're just so much better than Missouri State. And again, I have long-term aspirations for Illinois State in this tournament. And for that to happen, they have to win the opening round game. So I'm going to use Illinois State on the money line. And the other thing I like about it is I'm going to know the outcome an hour and a half before the Colgate game. So I'm going to use Illinois State on the money line. And hopefully I won't have to worry about what I'm going to do with Colgate, because we'll get Illinois State home and then we'll just be in the Colgate to cash our bet, which is the more kind of the leg that I'm more interested in. And the reason I'm interested in Colgate tonight, not just because I'll be at the game, which I will, but I don't think Josh Scovins is going to play for Army. And I just do not see how Army goes on the road and wins a road playoff game in Hamilton against the team that has won this league the last 5 or 6 years. I don't see how they do it without Scovins. He's far too important to them on both ends of the floor, but most importantly on the defensive end, where they're not going to really have anyone to deal with Jeff Woodward. And Army has really struggled against size at different points this year. So I think the move up from 6 to 8 suggests that he's probably out. Now, with that being said, I am going to reserve the right to take Army with the points 90 minutes to an hour before tip to a half hour before tip if Scovins plays. Because I do think that, like, if Scovins is in, I think I'd rather go for the middle here than be playing into that because he is that important. But as of right now, I still think Colgate wins. I still really like them to win this game. I just think it's a great matchup for them. They're at home. Home teams in the Patriot League have just done tremendously well this year. They have one of the highest cover margins of highest ATS win percentages of any conference in the league. Home conference games in the Patriot League. And now you're talking about all of these teams having arguably their best crowd of the season, because in this league, no one really shows up to the regular season games. Then you get into the Patriot League tournament, where it's the conference tournament at campus sites, and every place is packed. So Illinois State to Colgate came out earlier when I put it in minus 115. I played that for 3%. That is the parlay of the day. And I also played Boston University. So Boston University on the money line, minus 130. I also played this for 3%. I felt obligated to play the BU Navy game because I hit it in both of the regular season games. In the first meeting, I had a blowout 4% winner on Navy. In the second meeting, I had a blowout 4% winner on Boston University. And when I look at the matchup, first meeting to second meeting, what I really like is the fact that BU came out in the second meeting, which was at Case Gym, where this game is tonight in Boston, Massachusetts, came out and beat Navy at their own game. They said, you want to run up and down the floor and press us the whole game? Fine. We're going to play your game. And they went out and dropped 87 points and won the game in blowout fashion. The reason I think that's important, Boston University prefers playing slow. They're a really slow tempo team outside the top 300. I think 330th in tempo. So that's a team where it's like they prefer playing slow. And now Navy's in a tough spot. They have to go on the road where they're 4-11 this season, and they either have to play BU's game in their own gym, or they run the risk of trying to go, fast break press city like they did in the last meeting and having Boston University beat them again in that setting, which they did last time. So I like the adjustments Boston U has made. Navy's been terrible on the road this year. And if you just watch, the Boston University offense is so much better than it was when these two teams met the first time. Boston, Navy's rolling into the conference tournament as well, 5-1 their last 6 games, but BU is 4-1, and they're also scoring. So I couldn't pass it up. I said to myself, I'm going to target home teams in this conference tournament if I can get the right number, and I feel like I got the right number on Boston University. So that is a play. And the other two, I'll just comment on the other two really quickly. American and Bucknell are the two best teams in this league. I don't think either lose at home. American was tempting at minus 3.5, but I suppose the number is. I still would lean American there. I made it like 5, so definitely a little bit of value, but that one's a little bit trickier. I don't know. Lafayette can be a tricky handicap, so I decided to leave that one alone. And then the other one, Bucknell, has been steamed to oblivion at this point. I think Loyola is going to have an injury. I forget. I think it was Speed that went down on Tuesday. Someone got hurt toward the end of that Loyola game that we cashed a 4% play in on Tuesday. So I wouldn't be surprised if Loyola was a little bit banged up. I agree with the move. I wouldn't play it at 9. I wish, kind of kicking myself for not just laying the 6.5 with Bucknell, because I'd have a great number at this point. But at the same token, wouldn't be all that surprised if Bucknell came out and just ran them off the court tonight. Other conference tournaments. So West Coast Conference tourney gets started tonight. I have a lean toward Pacific. That's another day game. My numbers love Pacific. I don't have a great gauge on these like sort of lower tier WCC teams. I do know that Pacific was a team that a lot of very smart people were high on coming into the season. Didn't really pan out for them, 9-23, and they finished just 4-14 in conference play. But they'll be playing San Diego who finished worse than them, finished dead last, 2-16. So a slight lean toward Pacific there. And then I lean toward Georgia State. This was I kind of had the spot circled for Georgia State, depending on their opponent in this game. If it was Coastal or if it was Southern Miss, I would have been all about Georgia State in this spot. Georgia Southern, they just played to a really tough game the other day. I thought there was a little bit of value, Georgia State plus 2.5, but I think this ends up being a pretty good game, similar to the game we just saw these two teams play the other day. So just a slight lean toward Georgia State there for me, but ultimately did not make my card. As I said yesterday, Ohio Valley, I don't think I bet an Ohio Valley team all season. So I'm not gonna try to jump in now and act like I have a really strong opinion there. I don't. And that's kind of the same way I feel about the Summit League. Just two conferences that I really didn't get involved with at all this year. So no reason to jump in now without kind of really good intel there. So gonna pass on those two games. Summit League plays. I guess I did see a little money on Nebraska Omaha for what it's worth, but again, I have no real opinion there, and I have no real opinion in either or in the Ohio Valley either. Where I do have an opinion is the Horizon, and these are on campus sites tonight. So I think that Youngstown IPFW game is a total toss-up. I would lean. So I do think what's going to happen tonight is Youngstown, all the fans that were coming out regularly last year and the year before when the team was really good, will show up for this playoff game. So, and that is one of the better atmospheres, better home gyms in the Horizon. I had Brian Power and I think Jeff Michaels, the three of us went out to a Youngstown game a couple of years ago, and it was awesome. Like, great atmosphere in the Beagley Center. So I'll give them a little bump for home court. I guess I lean Youngstown there. The A Suns, another one. Again, just another conference that I didn't do a ton with this year personally. So I'm just going to kind of pass on that. We'll go to the other Horizon. So Horizon, I have some opinions. So I said, maybe lean Youngstown. Cleveland State, this is an interesting one because I make the number higher than it is, but there's just something about this Cleveland State team that screams early upset in this tournament. I think it's the fact that their offense can kind of go cold. And that's really what happened to them after their crazy start in this league. They had lost 4 of their last 5 before beating IPFW on the final day of the season, and kind of choked away the league title. And a big reason for that was the offense it gets very stagnant at times, especially if they're not hitting the outside shot. Now, this is a home game for them. This is at the Wolstein Center. So they've got that going for them. But Northern Kentucky, they beat them. I believe they beat them, or I'm sorry, they lost to them at Northern Kentucky in the most recent meeting, beat them earlier this year. I would need more points to fade Cleveland State here because of where I make the number. But Northern Kentucky I wouldn't be surprised if they won that game. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't be surprised if Northern Kentucky won that game, and I would not be surprised if Wright State found a way to knock off Robert Morris. Robert Morris and Cleveland State finishing 1-2 in this league is mind-blowing to me. They both kind of came out of nowhere. But right now, Robert Morris looks like a little bit more locked in than Cleveland State. I trust them more. But with that being said, I felt like Wright State was a top 3 team in this league. They're sitting down there as the 8 seed. That's just a very, very dangerous 8 seed, in my opinion. And then the other game, Milwaukee and Oakland, no real opinion there for me in that one either. I guess I do have one very kind of slight A-Sun opinion. I could see Queens giving Lipscomb a game. So I was wrong about who won that game the other night, the Queens Florida Gulf Coast game. But I probably would have had some interest in Florida Gulf Coast had they made it to this spot against Lipscomb. Instead, it's Queens. I think they're getting 9.5. I think you've got to like that a little bit. Just slight lean toward Queens plus the points. And then finally, we've got Old Dominion and Texas State. Old Dominion must have some serious injuries I said yesterday, I leaned toward Old Dominion, and I thought that they could be the team that could maybe make a little bit of a run. They ended up winning easily yesterday, but this has steamed like 4 points. They're like a 7.5 point underdog right now. And I will tell you this, they are not deep. They have no bench. So if like Dura Gordon or Blankney or one of those guys is out, I would really want no part of Old Dominion. And then finally, looks like Valpo, Illinois, Chicago, slightly in Illinois, Chicago. They're another team that I've been a little bit higher than I think the market has been on this year, like all year. So again, I don't have like a great handicap there, but my numbers really like Illinois, Chicago, and I found myself siding with them more often than not this season. So that would be my lean in the late Missouri Valley game. We're right at about the 15-minute mark. I rattled off like almost every conference tournament that I've got an opinion on today. I do have that 4% play that goes later tonight up on my page, and we will see you guys back here for more conference tournament talk tomorrow.